There's a lot of confusion surrounding the idea of net neutrality. What is it? What's the goal? What's the purpose? And who's ultimately responsible for enacting the policies that are supposed to keep people like you and me from getting to surf the internet and look at what we want? Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and so we're going to spend this video talking about the 4 main problems that people have with net neutrality and our answer to each of them. The first thing is this idea, and it's very hyperbolic in nature. The hysteria is running rampant, saying that if we abolish net neutrality, if we repeal net neutrality like Chairman Pai wants to in December, that it will be the end of the internet as we know it. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to be the case because net neutrality has only been around since 2015. So if anything, abolishing that program or abolishing that policy, if you will, is only going to kick us back to what the internet was like in 2015. You know, when things like Amazon and Facebook and YouTube and Google were growing at an unprecedented rate and we were getting content like never before delivered to our fingertips. In other words, it was working pretty good. So the hysteria is unfounded, and the idea that going back to something is going to kill us or is going to make it where you can't download or stream your favorite shows is preposterous. This comes a large part from the idea that there is a monopoly, that you really can't have a free market, you can't have choice if there's only one provider, if there's this monopoly ISP or internet service provider. Unfortunately, this doesn't pass muster either because 24% of the American people don't even use one of the big 4, your Comcast, your Verizon, your AT&T, and your Charter. The problem is that of those 76%, the 76% of the American people that are using one of those 4, that comes down to about 19 or 20% each. So really, if 1 in 5 of the American people are using a different internet service provider, we can't really make the argument that there's a monopoly going on. In fact, according to the FCC's own data, 70% of the people in this country have a choice between at least 3 internet service providers. And it only goes up when you calculate at least having 2. It would be like this. You move out into the country, and the only way to get to your house is on an unpaved road. We don't go around saying that there's a problem because all roads aren't created equal. We recognize that as you move away from big city hubs, you might not get the services you're used to at the same rate or at the same speed, and you might not have the same choice. That's not a failure of the free market system, though, and that is critical to understanding the net neutrality debate. The third point is this idea that Netflix was held hostage or extortion was going on in their relationship with Comcast some years ago. So let's break that down for just a moment. When Comcast was recognizing the growth that Netflix was experiencing, they recognized that in order to continue to provide bandwidth for everybody else downloading and uploading and using their internet, they were going to have to make some major infrastructure improvements. So naturally, they went up to a service that was using quite a bit of data, quite a bit of that bandwidth, and said, hey, we'd like you to pay for a little bit of this. You're using a whole bunch of what we have to offer. We need some help financially with that. Now, we can argue if that was a good idea or a bad idea, but the fact remains Netflix entered into a voluntary business agreement with Comcast. So a lot of people had problems with their internet speeds when it came to downloading Netflix content. They entered into this arrangement with Comcast and the problem went away. This is the free market. You didn't like your service and you didn't like what was being provided. The business and the other company made a deal, and now you are happy again. There's nothing wrong with how that proceeded. It's only become political when we can say things like extortion and held hostage. But that wasn't the case. In fact, Netflix even acknowledged that they would have to enter into agreements like this with other internet service providers. And speaking of Netflix, let's talk about this. Netflix uses 37% of the bandwidth, according to a new study, 37% of the bandwidth during peak times of all internet. That's more than Amazon Prime, that's more than YouTube, and that's more than Hulu combined. If you're using this much of one singular pipe that's going through the world or the United States providing them internet, it's only natural that we say, hey, over a third? Come on, you might have to pay for that. You might have to pay a little bit for that access. Now, we might not like that because Netflix might put that cost off on the consumer. So what? I have to pay $1 or $2 more to ensure that Netflix runs smoothly and everything else runs smoothly as well. a lot of this comes down to this idea that the chairman and the FCC are taking internet and they're just going to let the internet service providers run rampant and screw the American people out of everything they have. That's not true either, because if you're going to make that argument, you've got to come up with more than just hypothetical scenarios. Oh, the ISPs could come out and do this, or the ISPs might come out and do this. There's no record of systemic problems, that is consistent problems time and time again. If anything, the company makes a business decision that the American people don't like and they change it. These companies don't want to lose your business, and they're going to hold on to it as best they can. Lastly, if you're still concerned that the ISPs are going to walk all over you with contracts that you can't possibly understand, know this. Part of Chairman Pai's platform says that it will require these internet service providers to make you aware. They have to be transparent of the business practices that they are going to provide. In other words, if they're going to throttle speeds down here or increase a website here, or perhaps they'll even show some favoritism to one of their subsidiary companies and the products that they provide, you will know about it. If we say that knowledge is power, then knowledge to the consumer in a free market society is the best we can hope for. We don't need net neutrality because we don't need government regulating our internet. Hey guys, if you liked that video, please be sure to share it on Facebook, and go ahead and check out our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. We also have a lot of content on a variety of different topics on our Facebook page, so be sure to check that out too. Again, restoring our republic begins with we the people.